I was standing at Nashville International Airport at 5:30 in the morning when two officers walked straight toward me and said, "Sir, we need you to come with us right now." They told me someone had reported I was dangerous, that I was carrying stolen commodities, that I might destroy evidence at a courthouse. I knew immediately who had made that call. My own son, Ethan. Before I go any further, thank you for being here. If this story hits close to home, take a moment to comment where you are watching from. It helps this channel more than you know, and it reminds me that none of us face these moments alone. Some details have been changed for privacy and storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to specific names or locations is coincidental. But the lesson at the heart of this story is something I believe with everything in me. Let me tell you why I was standing in that airport terminal, with my hands trembling around a leather bag full of my dead father's documents and 0 hours of sleep behind my eyes. My father, Henry Whitfield, died on November 12th, 2024. Lung cancer took him after a 2-year fight. He was 83 years old and had spent 50 years building Whitfield Construction from a one-truck operation into the largest family-owned contractor in western Tennessee. 12 active projects, 47 employees, a reputation built one honest handshake at a time. No loans from strangers, no corners cut, just 5 decades of showing up before dawn and leaving after dark. The funeral was small. My son Ethan stood near the back, arms crossed, jaw tight. He left before the reception without speaking to me. That was fine. We had not been close in years. But 3 days later, he called. His voice was flat, transactional, empty of anything resembling grief. "We need to discuss Grandpa's will. No condolences. No, how are you holding up? Just business." Here is what Ethan did not know. 6 months before he died, my father changed his will. The previous version split ownership of Whitfield Construction equally between me and Ethan. The new one left everything to me. 100%. The company, the equipment, the 12 projects, the office building on 4th Street. All of it. $4.2 million in assets. Every single dollar directed to my name alone. My father had his reasons. I knew some of them. The rest were locked inside a USB drive he had given to his attorney, Philip Garrett, with very specific instructions. So on this particular morning, November 26th, 2024, I had a 6:35 flight from Nashville to Memphis. There was a probate hearing at Shelby County Courthouse at 9 o'clock sharp. Ethan's lawyer had filed a motion to contest the will, claiming my father was mentally incompetent when he made his final decision. Philip told me I needed to be there in person. No exceptions. No delays. I had calculated every minute. Wheels up at 6:35, land at 7:50. Drive 40 minutes to the courthouse. Tight, but possible. That is why I was at the security checkpoint at 5:30 in the morning, placing my bag on the conveyor belt. Inside that bag were my father's letters spanning 30 years of correspondence. His medical records from Dr. Patterson, confirming full mental capacity 2 weeks before his death. His personal journal, and the most important item of all, a sealed envelope Philip had given me the night before, with instructions to open it only inside the courtroom. I walked through the metal detector. No alarm. Clean. I reached for my bag on the other side, already running through my next steps. Gate. B12. Maybe grab coffee. Review Philip's notes one final time before boarding. "Excuse, monsieur." The voice came from my left. An officer in his mid-30s with the kind of calm expression that comes from years of handling tense situations. His badge read Officer Reeves. Behind him, a second officer. Younger, stockier. Officer Tran. Both stood with that particular stillness that told me this was not random. Yes? I kept my voice level. 30 years of managing construction crews had taught me how to stay calm when everything inside you wants to react. "We need you to come with us, please." My stomach dropped. but I kept my face neutral. Is there a problem with my bag? Just some questions, sir. This way. Reeves gestured toward a door marked Security Office, authorized personnel only. Tran picked up my carry-on without asking. The message was clear. This was not optional. Stay calm, James. This is just like dealing with a subcontractor who botched a foundation pour. Listen first, react second. Never let them see you sweat. They led me down a narrow corridor into a small windowless room. Gray walls. One metal table bolted to the floor. 3 chairs that looked older than my career. The air smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. A fluorescent light buzzed overhead with that particular flicker that tells you the ballast is dying. The engineer in me noticed. The father in me was drowning. Reeves motioned for me to sit. I did. Tran placed my bag on the table and positioned himself near the door. Not blocking it entirely, but close enough to send a message. Mr. Whitfield. Reeves pulled out a tablet, tapping the screen twice. We received a report about you this morning. My heart rate climbed, but I kept my hands flat on the cold metal table. Steady, visible, non-threatening. What kind of report? Reeves glanced at the screen, then back at me. His eyes were careful, measuring. A phone call came in at 4:52 this morning. Caller identified himself as Ethan Whitfield, said he was your son. The room tilted. Just slightly. Just enough. The caller expressed concern. Reeves continued, his tone professionally neutral, that you might pose a threat to public safety. 4:52 in the morning. 3 hours and 38 minutes before my flight. While I was still awake in my hotel room, organizing documents, running timelines, preparing to honor my father's last wishes, my son was on the phone with airport security, building a lie designed to keep me in this room. A threat. The word came out rougher than I intended. What kind of threat? Tran shifted his weight by the door. Reeves scrolled on his tablet. The caller stated that you have been mentally unstable since your father's recent death. He claimed you were recently terminated from your engineering position due to erratic behavior. He stated that you are carrying stolen company documents and have made threats to destroy evidence at a courthouse today. He also mentioned a history of opioid dependency following a back injury. Every single word was a lie. Every single word was carefully chosen to keep me in this chair for as long as possible. Reeves set the tablet down between us. The screen still glowed with the call log. Mr. Whitfield, I am going to read you the full details of the report your son filed. Then, you can tell me your side. Reeves picked up the tablet and began reading. His voice was flat, official, the kind of tone that strips emotion from words so the facts can stand on their own. Report filed November 26, 2024. Time of call, 4:52 a.m. Duration, 7 minutes and 14 seconds. Caller identified himself as Ethan Whitfield, age 35, residing in Memphis, Tennessee. Caller states that his father, James Whitfield, age 59, is traveling from Nashville to Memphis today for a probate hearing regarding the estate of Henry Whitfield, deceased. Reeves paused, glanced at me, then continued. Caller states the following concerns. 1. Subject was terminated from his position as senior engineer at Whitfield Construction approximately 4 months ago due to erratic behavior, verbal threats towards staff, and suspected substance abuse. 2. Subject has a documented history of opioid dependency following a spinal injury sustained in 2021. Caller believes subject may be under the influence during travel. 3. Subject is in possession of proprietary company documents obtained without authorization. Caller believes subject intends to present falsified evidence at today's hearing or destroy legitimate records if confronted. 4. Subject made verbal threats during a phone conversation on November 23, specifically stating, quote, "I will burn this whole thing to the ground before I let anyone take what is mine." End quote. Reeves set the tablet down. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Tran stood motionless by the door. Those are serious allegations, Mr. Whitfield. I sat still for a moment. Not because I was scared, because I was counting. 4 lies. 4 carefully constructed, specifically detailed lies. Each one designed not just to delay me, but to make me look dangerous enough that these officers would have no choice but to hold me as long as possible. Officers, I said, keeping my voice measured. I am going to address each of those claims one at a time. I ask that you let me finish before responding. Reeves nodded. Go ahead. First, I was not terminated. I retired voluntarily in June of 2023, after a back injury made fieldwork impossible. I have my retirement paperwork in my bag. I also have a pension statement from the Tennessee State Retirement System dated last month. People who get fired do not receive pensions. Reeves made a note. Second, I was prescribed pain medication after my surgery in 2021. I completed a supervised taper program at Vanderbilt Medical Center in 2022. I have been clean for over 2 years. My physician, Dr. Amara Singh, can confirm this. I can provide her number right now. Another note. Third, the documents in my bag are not stolen. They are my father's personal letters, his medical records, and materials his attorney gave me specifically for today's hearing. My father left them to me. His attorney, Philip Garrett, can confirm their provenance with a single phone call. And the fourth claim? Reeves asked. I took a breath. I did speak with my son 3 days ago. I did say something about not letting anyone take what my father built. I was talking about the legal process, about hiring lawyers, about showing up in court. My son has taken those words and twisted them into something I never intended. Silence. Reeves studied my face. Tran shifted slightly. You are saying your son fabricated this report, Reeves said. I am saying my son is contesting a will that leaves him nothing. He has a probate hearing this morning, where I am the primary respondent. If I am not there, the judge could rule in his favor by default. My son called you at 4:52 in the morning because he calculated exactly how long this conversation would take. Reeves exchanged a look with Tran. Something shifted between them. Not quite belief, but the beginning of doubt about the caller's motives. Can you verify the hearing? I asked. Reeves made a call. Short, efficient. I heard fragments. Shelby County Courthouse. Estate of Henry Whitfield. 9 a.m. Judge Morrison. He hung up. Hearing confirmed, he said. Officers, may I ask something? Go ahead. Do you record incoming threat calls? Reeves hesitated. All TSA threat reports are recorded for liability purposes. I want to hear it. I want to hear my son's voice making those claims. Reeves looked at Tran. Tran shrugged. This was unusual, clearly. But nothing in the rulebook said no. Reeves tapped the tablet. Pressed play. My son's voice filled that small gray room. Controlled. Measured. Practiced. This is very difficult for me, but I am concerned about my father's safety and the safety of others. He has been increasingly erratic since my grandfather's death 2 weeks ago. He was fired from the company for threatening a coworker. He has a history of painkiller abuse. I believe he may be impaired right now. The operator asked for specifics. He is flying to Memphis this morning. Flight number 1847, departing 6:35. He is carrying documents that belong to the company, not to him. I am afraid he might destroy evidence if he feels cornered. He told me 3 days ago that he would burn everything to the ground. Has your father ever been violent? A pause. Perfectly timed. Perfectly acted. Not that I know of. But he has never been this angry before. I do not know what he is capable of anymore. Reeves stopped the recording. The room went quiet. I sat there listening to the echo of my son's voice. The boy I taught to ride a bike on Maple Street. The teenager I drove to baseball practice every Saturday for 6 years. The young man I walked through his first engineering final at 3 in the morning with coffee and graph paper. That voice had just called airport security and reported his own father as a threat. Not because he believed it, because he knew exactly what it would accomplish. "Officers," I said quietly, "can you check whether there were any other calls from that same number earlier this morning?" Reeves frowned. "Why?" "Because people telling the truth call once. People rehearsing, hang up, and try again." Tran raised an eyebrow. Reeves typed. His expression shifted. 3 earlier calls. Same number. First at 2:15 a.m., 4 seconds. Second at 3:30 a.m., 9 seconds. Third at 4:10 a.m., 12 seconds. The successful call was 4:52. "He practiced 3 times," I said. "At 2 in the morning. He sat in the dark and rehearsed his performance until he got it right." Tran muttered something under his breath. Reeves was already pulling up my background. "You are clean," he said after a moment. "No arrests. No complaints. No flags. 30 years of engineering licenses in good standing. Retired 2023. Pension active." He closed the report, picked up a pen, and wrote something on a form. "I am marking this report as unfounded. Here is your incident number." He slid the paper across. "NASTS A 241126045 You may need it today." Tran stepped aside from the door. "Family members using the system as a weapon. We see it more than you would think." I stood. My legs felt unsteady, but I kept my posture straight. "What time is it?" 6:14. 21 minutes until boarding." "Thank you," I said, gathering my bag. Everything was still inside. Letters, medical records, journal, sealed envelope. Reeves added quietly as I reached the door. "Your son's call was convincing, Mr. Whitfield. That level of detail, the flight number, the specific claims, that took planning. Be careful today." "I know," I said. "I know exactly what kind of planning it took." I walked out of that room and into the terminal corridor. My hands were shaking now. Not from fear, from the cold clarity of understanding what my own child had become, what he was willing to do, how far he was willing to go. Gate B12 was 8 minutes away. My flight boarded in 21. The hearing started in 2 hours and 46 minutes. And somewhere in Memphis, my son was probably smiling, certain that his father was still trapped in a windowless room, answering questions that had no honest answers. He was wrong about that. But he was not done trying. I ran. 59 years old with a bad back and a leather bag full of documents, and I ran through Nashville International Airport like a man half my age. Past the coffee shop that was just raising its gate. Past the family of 4 struggling with a stroller. Past the businessman in a tailored coat who gave me a look that said he had never needed to sprint for anything in his life. Gate B12 appeared at the end of the corridor. The board above it read, Flight 1847, Memphis. Boarding. The gate agent was already reaching for the microphone. Final boarding call for Flight 1847 to Memphis. All remaining passengers, please proceed to the gate immediately. I reached her, breathing hard, pass in hand. She scanned it without looking up. Cutting it close, sir. Yes, ma'am. I collapsed into seat 14C window. My hands trembled against the armrests, adrenaline still flooding my system. The woman beside me glanced over with mild concern, then returned to her book. I closed my eyes. Let myself breathe. I had made it. Despite everything Ethan had planned, despite the 4:52 a.m. call and the rehearsals and the carefully constructed lies, I was on this plane. I would land at 7:50, drive 40 minutes, walk into that courtroom by 8:30 at the latest. 30 minutes early, the engines hummed. The plane pushed back from the gate. Relief washed over me in a wave so strong I nearly laughed. It lasted exactly 90 seconds. My phone buzzed. One final notification before airplane mode. An email. Subject line. Flight, cancellation, confirmation. My heart stopped. I tapped it open, hands unsteady. Your reservation for Flight 2312, Nashville to Memphis, departing November 26th at 6:35 a.m., has been canceled per your request. Confirmation number ending in 742. No. Not after everything. Not after that room. Not after running through this terminal like my life depended on it. I looked at the email again. Read it carefully this time. Flight 2312. My flight was 1847. Different flight number. Different confirmation code. I checked the passenger name at the top. Ethan Whitfield. My son had tried to cancel my flight remotely, but he had used his own confirmation code by mistake. He had canceled his own ticket instead of mine. A second notification appeared. Philip Garrett. 7:02 a.m. Subject: Urgent. James. My flight from Atlanta was just canceled. Someone called the airline claiming to be me and requested cancellation. I am rebooking now, but the next available gets me to Memphis at 10:15. I will not make the 9 a.m. hearing in person. I can appear by video if the judge allows it. Get there. Do not let them start without you. My attorney's flight. Canceled too. This was not a mistake. This was coordinated. I sat back against the headrest. The plane was taxiing now, moving toward the runway. Outside, Nashville disappeared in gray morning light. I pulled up the emergency motion filing that Philip had forwarded me at 5:45 a.m. The document Ethan's lawyer had filed while I was still sitting in that security office. Emergency motion to compel immediate hearing. Filed November 26th, 2024. 5:15 a.m. Electronic filing. Petitioner: Ethan Whitfield. 5:15 in the morning. While I was being interrogated about threats I never made, my son was filing paperwork to move the hearing forward. I scrolled through the motion. Every page was worse than the last. Respondent James Whitfield has demonstrated a pattern of financial irresponsibility and mounting personal debts totaling approximately $300,000. Attached documentation establishes fiscal mismanagement that calls into question respondent's fitness to manage a $4.2 million estate. Attached were credit reports, debt collection notices, a bankruptcy filing, all under the name James Whitfield. But the details were wrong. Wrong middle initial. Wrong date of birth. Wrong address. Phoenix, Arizona. Not Tennessee. A completely different man with my name. But the documents looked official, and unless someone examined them carefully, they would assume it was me. I kept reading. Respondent has a documented history of opioid dependency and was terminated from employment at Whitfield Construction in June 2023, following multiple incidents of workplace violence. Attached termination letter and incident reports. The termination letter was forged. I recognized the company letterhead. Someone had created it, using our actual template. The signature at the bottom was supposed to be Henry's, my father's handwriting, but it was wrong. The H was too round. The loop on the Y was missing. My father had signed his name the same way for 60 years. I knew every stroke. Petitioner respectfully requests the following relief. Immediate hearing due to credible risk of evidence destruction. Mandatory psychological evaluation of respondent. Emergency appointment of neutral estate administrator pending resolution. And the new hearing time. 7:30 a.m. Not 9. The math hit me like a punch to the chest. My plane landed at 7:50. 20 minutes after the hearing started. By the time I drove 40 minutes to the courthouse, the hearing would be over. Ethan's lawyer would argue that I did not care enough to show up, that my absence proved I was unfit, that the court should appoint a neutral administrator who would inevitably side with the contesting party. 3 layers. That is what my son had built. Layer 1. The TSA call at 4:52. Delay me at security long enough to miss my flight entirely. That had failed. Layer 2. Cancel my flight and my attorney's flight simultaneously. That had partially failed. I was airborne, but Philip was grounded. Layer 3. Move the hearing 90 minutes earlier. So, even if layers 1 and 2 failed, even if I somehow got on a plane, I would arrive too late. 3 layers of sabotage, each one a backup for the last. Each one calculated, timed, and executed with the precision of someone who had spent days planning this. The flight attendant walked past. "Can I get you anything, sir?" "No, thank you." She moved on. I stared out the window. Clouds below, Tennessee farmland fading beneath them. Somewhere ahead, in a courthouse in Memphis, my son was probably already seated beside his lawyer, waiting, confident, certain that every door was closed. But Ethan had made one mistake. He had built his trap assuming I would give up, assuming that a man who spent 30 years solving structural problems, a man who had been trained to find the weakness in any system, would simply accept defeat when the numbers did not add up. He had underestimated me, just like he had underestimated his grandfather. The plane leveled off at 35,000 feet. No Wi-Fi on this aircraft. No phone signal. I was completely unreachable for the next 50 minutes. Ethan had probably checked that too. Checked the route, the aircraft type, made sure I would be sealed inside a metal tube, with no way to call the court. I opened my carry-on and pulled out my father's documents. If I could not call ahead, I would prepare. Every letter organized, every medical record flagged, every piece of evidence ready to present the moment I walked through those courthouse doors. And at the bottom of the stack, the sealed envelope from Philip, the one he had told me to open only in the courtroom. I held it up against the cabin light. Inside, I could feel something small and rectangular. A USB drive. My father's final weapon. I set it back carefully. Not yet. The courtroom first. Whatever was on that drive, my father had meant for it to be heard by a judge. The pilot's voice crackled overhead. "Folks, we are at cruising altitude. Smooth skies ahead to Memphis. We will have you on the ground at 7:50 Central Time. 7:50. 20 minutes after the hearing began. 40 minutes from the courthouse. Over an hour late. But I was not done, not even close. I spread my father's documents across the tray table. 30 years of a man's life, organized into neat stacks. Letters on the left, medical records in the middle, journal entries on the right, and the sealed envelope with the USB drive sitting apart from everything else, waiting for its moment. I started with the medical records. Dr. Robert Patterson, Henry's oncologist. Last appointment, October 29th, 2024. 14 days before my father died. The notes were clear, patient alert and oriented, cognition intact. Discussed estate planning and end-of-life wishes. Patient demonstrates full decisional capacity. 14 days. Ethan's lawyer was going to argue that my father was mentally incompetent when he changed his will. But here was his physician, confirming sharp cognition 2 weeks before the end. This alone should destroy the incompetence argument. Beneath the medical records, tucked inside a manila folder, was something I had not yet read. A letter from my father. Handwritten. Dated November 5th, 2024. 1 week before he died. The envelope was cream-colored, heavyweight. His handwriting on the front was shakier than it used to be, the cancer eating his strength, but every letter was still legible, still deliberate. James. To be read before the hearing, not after. I opened it carefully. 3 pages. Filled margin to margin. Son. If you are reading this, it means I am gone, and Ethan has done what I expected him to do. I am sorry for that. Not for my decision. For the pain it will cause you. Changing my will was not about punishing Ethan. It was about saving him from himself. A man who inherits $4 million without earning a single callus will destroy himself with it. My father's voice was in every sentence. That direct, unadorned way he had of speaking truth. Here is what you need to know. 6 months ago, I hired a private investigator named Carl Whitmore. I suspected Ethan was in financial trouble. the kind that comes from bad choices, repeated over and over. Carl confirmed what I feared. Ethan has been gambling for nearly 4 years. Online poker, casinos, sports betting. The debt is substantial. He owes dangerous people 4 years. My son had been drowning for 4 years, and I never saw it. But that is not all. In the past 2 years, while I was fighting this cancer, Ethan has been running Whitfield Construction into the ground. He has cut material costs on 4 active projects by substituting substandard concrete, Grade C, where Grade A was specified. He funneled the savings into a shell company called Apex Development LLC. From there, the money paid gambling debts. Approximately $2.3 million. The words blurred. $2.3 million. Stolen from the company my father built over 50 years, and worse. Substandard materials in buildings, where people lived, where families slept, where children played. I have the evidence. All of it. An independent engineer named David Park inspected all 4 projects. His reports are damning. I also have a video confession from Mike Torres, a subcontractor Ethan pressured into using inferior materials. Everything is on a USB drive. I gave it to Philip with instructions. If Ethan accepts the will, the USB stays sealed. If he contests it, Philip presents it to the judge. That is my trap, not revenge. Consequence. I closed my eyes. My dead father's handwriting telling me my son was not just greedy, but dangerous. That he had put lives at risk for gambling money. That my father had known and built a mechanism of justice as carefully as he built buildings. The letter continued. I know you, James. You will want to protect Ethan. Fix this quietly. That is who you are. Do not protect him from this. He needs to fall. A man who never faces consequences, never learns to change. I tried everything else. Talked to him, offered help. Told him I knew about the gambling. He denied it. Lied to my face while I was connected to an oxygen tank. So I built this. A trap that only springs if he chooses to spring it. If he accepts the will, he walks away clean. But if he fights it, everything comes out. His choice. His consequence. I remembered the last time I saw my father alive. November 9th. 3 days before the end. Propped up in his hospital bed at home. Oxygen tubes in his nose. 60 pounds gone from his frame but nothing from his mind. James, he had said. When this is over, do not give up on him. Whatever Ethan does, remember, he is still your son. Still that boy who followed you around construction sites with a plastic hard hat, asking why walls need rebar. I remember, Dad. The will is my job. What comes after is yours. I am building the wall. You build the door. I had not understood then. Now, at 35,000 feet, I understood perfectly. The letter's final paragraph was shakier, written closer to the end. One more thing. Ethan did not act alone. Watch Rachel. I do not have proof yet, only suspicion. Something about that woman has never sat right with me. Trust your instincts. And trust Philip. I love you, son. I am proud of the man you are. Now go show Ethan the man he could be. Dad. I folded the letter carefully. My hands were steady now. The shaking from the security office was gone, replaced by clarity. My father had spent his dying months building a case against his own grandson, not out of spite, out of love so fierce it looked like punishment to anyone who did not understand. The pilot's voice cut through. Folks, we have begun our descent into Memphis. Local time is 7:42. Gate arrival at 7:50. 7:42. The hearing had been running for 12 minutes. Ethan was in that courtroom right now. Confident, certain every door was closed. But my father had built a door, and he had given me the key. I organized everything. Medical records, letters, journal, USB drive. In my jacket pocket, close to my chest. The clouds broke beneath us. Memphis stretched out below, the Mississippi curving through the city like a gray ribbon. Somewhere down there was a courthouse. And inside it, my son was about to learn what happens when you contest the last wishes of a man who spent 50 years building things that do not fall down. The wheels hit the runway at 7:51. The plane slowed, taxied, stopped. The seatbelt sign stayed lit. Around me, passengers reached for overhead bins with the casual patience of people who had nowhere urgent to be. I did not have that luxury. The moment the sign dinged off, I was on my feet, bag in hand, phone powered on, moving toward the front of the cabin before the door even opened. A flight attendant gave me a look. I did not care. The jetway. The terminal. Memphis International spread out before me, bright and busy. My phone exploded with notifications the moment it found signal. Philip Garrett, 7:28 a.m. Cannot reach you. Hearing started. I am still in Atlanta. Rebooked for 10:15 arrival. You need to call the court now. Sharon Palmer, Shelby County Courthouse, 7:35 a.m. Mr. Whitfield, Judge Morrison is asking about your location. Please contact us immediately. Ethan Whitfield, 7:40 a.m. Dad, where are you? Judge is about to hear our motion. Guess you decided the company was not worth fighting for after all. I ignored Ethan's message and dialed the number Sharon had called from. She answered on the first ring. Shelby County Probate Court. This is James Whitfield. My voice came out steady despite the fact that I was half running through the terminal, dodging a group of college students with rolling suitcases. I just landed. I am here, Mr. Whitfield. Her voice dropped. Hold, please. Muffled sounds. A hand over the receiver. Paper shuffling. Then she came back. The hearing began at 7:30. Judge Morrison has been asking about your absence. Mr. Price has been presenting his client's case for 22 minutes without opposition. I was detained at airport security this morning. My son filed a false report. I have the incident number. I have documentation. Can I appear by phone until I arrive? A pause. Judge Morrison does not typically allow phone appearances. My son deliberately moved this hearing forward after filing false reports to keep me from attending. I can prove it. I am 40 minutes from the courthouse, but the hearing is already 22 minutes in. Hold on. The line went quiet. I could hear courtroom sounds in the background. A door closing. Footsteps. A throat clearing. Then a new voice came on. Deep. Measured. Carrying the weight of 40 years on the bench. Mr. James Whitfield. Are you on the line? Yes, Your Honor. I landed at 7:51. I am en route to the courthouse right now. Mr. Whitfield. I have spent the last 22 minutes listening to Mr. Price describe you as financially irresponsible, chemically dependent, and potentially violent. He claims you were detained by airport security this morning for threatening behavior. He has submitted what he calls evidence of personal debt totaling $300,000. Care to respond? Another voice cut in. Smooth. Expensive. Practiced. Your Honor, Mr. Whitfield is clearly calling from an airport. He missed the scheduled hearing time. This demonstrates a blatant disregard for the court's authority and lends credibility to our concerns about his fitness to manage Mr. Price. Judge Morrison's voice snapped like a gavel. I will decide what demonstrates what. Continue. Mr. Whitfield. I pushed through the terminal doors into cold Memphis morning air. The rental car lot was across the road. I started running again. Your Honor. At 4:52 this morning, my son Ethan called Nashville Airport Security and filed a false threat report against me. He claimed I was carrying stolen documents, that I was under the influence of opioids, and that I intended to destroy evidence. I was detained for 44 minutes, investigated and fully cleared. I have the incident report number. Read it. NAST TS A24112604552. You can verify with TSA that the report was marked unfounded. Silence from the judge. Then, the scratch of a pen. Additionally, I continued, breathing hard as I crossed the parking lot. Someone using my attorney's personal information called Delta Airlines and canceled his flight from Atlanta this morning. Philip Garrett is currently rebooked and will not arrive until 10:15. And the hearing was moved from 9 a.m. to 7:30 based on an emergency motion filed at 5:15 a.m. while I was still being detained. More silence. Longer this time. Mr. Price, the judge said slowly. Did your client mention to you that he filed a police report against his father this morning? Conrad Price hesitated. Your Honor, I would need to confer with my client regarding yes or no, Counselor. I was not aware of a TSA report, Your Honor. Mr. Whitfield. The judge's voice shifted, not softer, heavier. I knew your father for 35 years. Henry Whitfield and I sat in the same pew at First Baptist every Sunday for 2 decades. We served on the Rotary Club board together. I watched him build that company from one pickup truck and a set of hand tools. I reached the rental car counter. The agent looked at my face and started typing immediately. Henry Whitfield. The judge continued. Never raised a man who would steal his own company's documents. And he certainly never raised a man who would show up impaired to a legal proceeding. Conrad Price started to object. Your Honor, personal acquaintance with the deceased does not. I am aware of the ethical boundaries, Mr. Price. I am establishing that I will require significantly more than circumstantial allegations before I accept your client's characterization of the respondent. We are in recess. 45 minutes. Your Honor. The emergency motion is based on claims that are currently being contradicted by a TSA incident report. 45 minutes, Mr. Price. Use them wisely. And tell your client that if I discover any party has attempted to obstruct these proceedings, there will be consequences that make a penalty clause look generous. The line went dead. I stood at the rental counter. Phone still pressed to my ear. Heart hammering. The agent slid keys across the counter. Bay 7. Silver. Camry. Thank you. I grabbed the keys and moved. 45 minutes. 42-minute drive. 3 minutes of margin. My phone buzzed as I reached the car. Philip Garrett. Heard you got through. Well done. I will join by video when court reconvenes. The USB is ready? In my pocket. Get there, James. Whatever Ethan's lawyer presents in the next 45 minutes, that USB will answer it. I started the engine and pulled onto Airways Boulevard heading toward downtown Memphis. The morning sun cut low through the windshield. Somewhere ahead, in a courtroom I had never set foot in, a judge who had known my father was giving me exactly enough time to arrive, and my son was sitting beside his lawyer, learning for the first time that his 3-layer trap had not worked. Not yet, anyway. Because I knew Ethan. And I knew he had planned for this failure too. I pulled into the Shelby County Courthouse parking lot at 8:35. 2 minutes before the recess ended. The building was old brick, 3 stories. American flag hanging still in the windless morning. I spotted Ethan's black BMW in the second row, a rental sticker on the bumper. He had driven from Memphis. Must have arrived hours ago. Probably sat in that courtroom since 7, waiting for a hearing he had engineered to begin without me. I straightened my tie in the rearview mirror, smoothed my hair, took one breath. Then I grabbed my bag, stepped out, and walked toward the entrance. Courtroom C was on the 2nd floor. Wood-paneled walls darkened with age. High ceilings. That particular smell of old courthouses, leather and floor wax, and decades of consequence. The gallery held maybe 15 people. I recognized some of them. Local contractors who had worked with my father. A few business partners. Men who had shaken Henry Whitfield's hand on deals. Sealed. With nothing but honor. I pushed through the double doors at 8:37. Every head turned. Ethan sat at the petitioner's table on the left. Dark suit, perfectly tailored. His lawyer Conrad Price beside him, silver-haired, composed, radiating the kind of confidence that cost $400 an hour. Ethan's face went white when he saw me. Not surprise exactly. Something worse. The look of a man watching a plan collapse in real time. I walked to the respondent's table on the right. Set my bag down. Saturday. The chair creaked beneath me. Mr. Whitfield. Sharon Palmer, the clerk, nodded from her station. Glad you made it. Oui. The door to chambers opened. Everyone stood. Judge Raymond Morrison walked to the bench in black robes, silver-rimmed glasses perched on his nose. 70 years old, lean. The kind of man who still split his own firewood on weekends. He settled into his chair and surveyed the room with an expression that suggested he had already made several opinions, and none of them were favorable to the petitioner. Be seated. Court is in session. Matter of the estate of Henry Whitfield. Deceased. He paused. Let the words settle into the wood, and silence. We had an unusual start this morning. Let me summarize for the record. Hearing began at 7:30 per emergency motion. Respondent was absent due to circumstances now under review. At 7:52, respondent appeared by telephone and provided evidence suggesting deliberate interference with his ability to attend. I called a 45-minute recess. All parties are now present. We proceed. Conrad Price stood immediately, buttoning his jacket. Smooth. Practiced. Your Honor, we appreciate the court's patience. The petitioner's case rests on 4 grounds. He clicked a remote. A screen behind him lit up with bullet points. Professional presentation. Someone had spent money on this. First, Henry Whitfield suffered from cognitive decline in his final months due to advanced lung cancer and associated medications. He lacked the mental capacity to execute a valid will, change 6 months before his death. Second, the timing of the will change is inherently suspicious. A complete disinheritance occurring while the testator was undergoing aggressive cancer treatment suggests outside influence. Third, James Whitfield exerted undue influence over his father. He was the sole regular visitor during Henry's final year. He had exclusive access, opportunity, and significant financial motive. Fourth, Henry Whitfield was on multiple medications known to cause confusion, including oxycodone for pain management and dexamethasone for inflammation. These medications impaired judgment and decision-making capacity. Conrad let the bullet points glow on the screen. Dramatic pause. Well rehearsed. Your Honor, we will present medical testimony, financial documentation, and witness testimony establishing that Henry Whitfield was not competent to make this decision, and that James Whitfield manipulated a dying man for personal gain. I sat still. Let it wash over me. 4 accusations, each one a distortion of truth. Yes, my father had cancer. No, it did not affect his mind. Yes, he was on medication. No, not the kind that clouds judgment. Dr. Patterson had confirmed that explicitly. Judge Morrison turned to me. Mr. Whitfield, do you have representation? Your Honor, my attorney Philip Garrett is joining by video from Atlanta. His flight was canceled this morning, under circumstances I have already described. The judge nodded to Sharon, who set up the video link. Philip's face appeared on the courtroom monitor within 30 seconds. Slightly disheveled. Airport lounge background, but his eyes were sharp and his voice carried the weight of 40 years of probate law. Your Honor, Philip Garrett for the respondent. My apologies for the unusual appearance. I was unable to reach Memphis due to flight interference that I believe is connected to the events Mr. Whitfield described earlier. Noted, Mr. Garrett. Proceed when ready. Philip straightened his tie on screen. Your Honor, before I address Mr. Price's 4 grounds, I need to inform the court of something. Henry Whitfield anticipated this moment. Every argument Mr. Price just made. Every accusation, every distortion. Conrad shifted in his seat. Ethan's jaw tightened. How do you know that, Mr. Garrett? The judge asked. Because 6 months before his death, Henry Whitfield sat in my office and told me exactly what would happen. He said his grandson would contest the will. He said the arguments would center on mental capacity and undue influence. And he said, quote, Philip, when that day comes, give James the USB. Let them hear it from me. Philip held up a USB drive on camera. Small, black, unremarkable. But every eye in the courtroom locked onto it. Your Honor, this USB drive contains evidence compiled by Henry Whitfield himself during his final 6 months of life. Video testimony, independent engineering reports, financial records, and a personal statement from the deceased recorded in my office on May 15, 2024, 7 months before his death. Conrad rose quickly. Your Honor, we have had no opportunity to review this material. This is ambush litigation. This is a dead man defending his own will, Mr. Price, Philip replied calmly. And I assure you, what is on this drive will answer every one of your 4 grounds. Conclusively, Judge Morrison leaned forward, studying the USB on Philip's screen. Mr. Garrett, can you authenticate this evidence? I can, Your Honor. I was present for the recording. I commissioned the independent engineering reports at Henry's request. I maintained chain of custody on this drive for 7 months. It has never left my safe until last night when I gave it to James. The judge turned to Conrad. Counselor, I am going to allow this evidence. You will have the opportunity to cross-examine and challenge authenticity. But I will hear what Henry Whitfield had to say. Conrad sat down. Slowly. The confidence was cracking. Philip looked directly into the camera. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would like to play Henry Whitfield's personal statement first. Let the deceased speak for himself. Judge Morrison nodded once. Play it. The courtroom screen flickered to life. And there was my father. Henry Whitfield sat in what I recognized as Philip's office. The leather chair behind the mahogany desk. Bookshelves in the background. My father was thinner than I remembered from that month. The cancer was already taking him. But his eyes were clear. His posture was upright. His voice, when he spoke, was the same voice that had called me every Sunday evening for 30 years. My name is Henry Whitfield. I am 83 years old. Today is May 15th, 2024. I am recording this statement in the office of my attorney, Philip Garrett, because I need to say some things while I still can. He paused, adjusted his glasses. The gesture was so familiar, it hollowed me out. 6 months ago, I changed my will. I left my company, Whitfield Construction, entirely to my son James. My grandson Ethan receives nothing. I want to explain why. Because I know Ethan will fight this. I know he will stand in a courtroom and say I was confused, that I did not know what I was doing. So, let me be very clear. He leaned forward slightly. Direct. Unwavering. I know exactly what I am doing. My mind is sound. My doctor will confirm this. And the reason I am cutting my grandson out of my will is not because I do not love him. It is because I love him too much to hand him the tools to destroy himself. A murmur ran through the gallery. I did not look at Ethan. I could not. 18 months ago, my father continued on screen. I noticed discrepancies in the company's financial reports. Material costs were dropping on 4 major projects, but the savings were not appearing in the operating account. I hired a private investigator. What he found broke my heart. Henry's voice wavered for just a moment, then steadied. My grandson has been gambling for 4 years. He owes substantial debts to dangerous people. And to pay those debts, he has been stealing from my company. $2.3 million funneled through a shell company called Apex Development LLC. But that is not the worst of it. He looked directly into the camera. The worst of it is what he did to pay for it. He cut corners. On 4 active construction projects, he replaced Grade A structural concrete with Grade C. He pressured a subcontractor named Mike Torres into using substandard materials. Buildings where families live. Buildings with my name on them. Buildings I built my reputation on for 50 years. The courtroom was silent. Absolutely silent. Not a paper moved. Not a chair creaked. I have proof. Independent structural engineer David Park has inspected all 4 sites. His reports are attached to this drive. Mike Torres recorded a statement under oath. Bank records from Apex Development are included. Everything Ethan took. Every dollar. Every decision. Documented. Philip paused the video. Your Honor, with your permission, I would like to play the Mike Torres deposition next. Then, present the engineering reports and financial records. Judge Morrison nodded. His face was granite. The screen switched to a different recording. A man in his 40s, work shirt, calloused hands, Mike Torres. He sat in what looked like a kitchen. His voice was tired and heavy with guilt. My name is Mike Torres. I have been a concrete subcontractor in Western Tennessee for 22 years. In March of 2023, Ethan Whitfield called me into his office and told me to switch from Grade A structural mix to Grade C on the Riverside Apartments project. I told him Grade C was not rated for load-bearing applications above 3 stories. He said nobody would check. He said if I refused, he would make sure I never worked in this state again. Torres rubbed his face. I have a family, 3 kids. I could not afford to lose every contract in Tennessee. So I did it. Riverside. Then Oak Park Commons. Then the Midtown project. Then the warehouse on Beale Street. 4 projects, all Grade C where the specs called for Grade A. I have not slept right in 2 years. Philip switched to the financial documents. Spreadsheets filled the screen. 47 wire transfers from Whitfield Construction's operating account to Apex Development LLC, each one between $30,000 and $80,000. Each one authorized by Ethan Whitfield. The total at the bottom, $2,314,700. Then the engineering reports. David Park's assessments. Technical language. But the summary was clear. All 4 structures show evidence of substandard concrete composition inconsistent with design specifications. Structural integrity is compromised. Immediate inspection and potential remediation recommended. Risk level. Significant. Judge Morrison removed his glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose. The gallery was absolutely still. Philip returned to Henry's video for the final segment. My father appeared again on screen. Older now. Frailer. This section was clearly recorded later, perhaps weeks before his death. An oxygen tube was visible in his nose. Ethan. My father's voice was softer now. If you are hearing this, it means you contested my will. I hoped you would not. I prayed you would accept it and walk away and start fresh. But I knew you. I knew you would fight. His eyes glistened. The old man who had never cried in front of me was fighting tears on a screen in a courtroom. Everything I did because I love you. Even this. Especially this. Handing you $4 million right now would be handing you a loaded gun. You would gamble it away. In 3 years. And those buildings, son. People live in those buildings. Children sleep in those buildings. You put them at risk for poker money. He took a breath. The oxygen hissed softly. I am not punishing you. I am giving you a chance to become the man I know you can be. Your father will show you how. Trust him. He is a better man than either of us deserves. The screen went dark. Silence. Complete. Total silence. Someone in the gallery was crying quietly. Sharon had stopped typing. Judge Morrison stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then he turned to Ethan. My son's face was gray. His hands flat on the table. Conrad Price sat motionless beside him, legal pad untouched. "Mr. Price," the judge said quietly, "do you wish to cross-examine any of this evidence?" Conrad stood slowly. "Your Honor, I would request a recess. To review." "Denied. You have seen the video. You have seen the financial records. You have seen the engineering reports. Do you have any evidence that contradicts what this court just witnessed?" Silence. "Then I am prepared to rule." Judge Morrison straightened in his chair. "The will of Henry Whitfield, dated May 20th, 2024, is valid. The testator demonstrated clear mental capacity. His reasoning was documented, rational, and supported by evidence. There was no undue influence. The will stands." He turned his gaze to Ethan. "The petition to contest is denied, and pursuant to Section 7, Subsection 3 of the will, any party who contests without just cause assumes all legal fees incurred by both sides. Preliminary accounting places that amount at $55,000. Ethan's head dropped. Conrad placed a hand on his arm. "Ethan Whitfield, you are ordered to pay $55,000 in legal fees." Then the judge leaned forward. His voice changed. Not louder, heavier. "And Mr. Whitfield, those engineering reports. 4 active construction projects with compromised structural concrete. Are people living in those buildings right now?" Ethan did not look up. His silence was the only answer needed. "I am referring this matter to the Shelby County District Attorney's Office and the Tennessee Department of Building Safety. If those buildings are occupied, people are in danger. This court will not ignore that." The gavel fell. Once. Final. 48 hours after the hearing, a crack appeared in the east wall of Riverside Apartments. 3 inches wide. 4th floor. Running from the ceiling to the window frame like a jagged scar. A tenant named Maria Gonzalez noticed it when her daughter pointed at the wall during breakfast and said, "Mommy, the house is breaking." Maria called the building manager. The building manager called the city. The city sent Paul Nakamura. I received the call at 7:15 on the morning of November 28th. Paul's voice was tight, professional. But underneath it, I could hear something worse. Fear. "Mr. Whitfield, this is Paul Nakamura, Structural Safety Division, City of Memphis. I need you. At Riverside Apartments. Within the hour. We have a situation." I drove from my hotel in silence. The Memphis morning was gray and cold. November, hanging heavy over the city. I had spent the previous day in meetings with Philip, reviewing the legal aftermath of the hearing. The will was settled. The penalty clause activated. Ethan had not contacted me. I had not expected him to. But the buildings. The 4 buildings Ethan had compromised. I had been thinking about them constantly since the judge's words. Are people living in those buildings right now? Now I had my answer. Riverside Apartments was a 4-story residential complex on the east side of Memphis, 42 units. Families mostly. Working class. People who trusted that the walls around them would hold. People who had never heard of Apex Development LLC or Grade C Concrete or a grandson who gambled away their safety. Paul Nakamura met me in the parking lot. Mid-50s, compact, meticulous. The kind of engineer who triple-checked his calculations. His face told me everything before his words did. 3rd floor through 4th floor, east-facing wall. The crack is propagating. I have seen the original specifications for this building. Grade A, structural concrete, 4,200 psi minimum. What is actually in those walls? Tests closer to 2,800. Grade C. How bad? I asked. Bad enough that I am evacuating the building today. He looked at me directly. Mr. Whitfield, I have 16 families in there. 63 people, including 22 children. If that wall fails under load, we are talking about a partial collapse. 4th floor onto 3rd. In the middle of the night, when everyone is sleeping, the words landed like stones in my chest. 22 children. I am issuing a 30-day remediation order, Paul continued. All 4 Whitfield construction projects are being inspected this week. If the concrete fails testing at any of them, I will shut them all down until full repairs are completed. And if those repairs are not done within 30 days, I am recommending demolition. Demolition. Tear down what my father's company built. What his name stood for. What is the estimated repair cost, I asked. For all 4? Depending on the extent of the compromised concrete? He paused. $2 to $3 million. I stood in that parking lot and watched the evacuation begin. Families carrying boxes, suitcases, children's backpacks. A mother holding a little girl on her hip. The girl was maybe 4 years old, dark curly hair, clutching a stuffed rabbit. She looked back at the building with confusion. She did not understand why she was leaving her home. My son did this. My son put this child in danger because he could not stop placing bets. Because he needed one more hand, one more game, one more chance to win back what he had already lost. I turned away before anyone could see my face. That afternoon, my phone rang again. Margaret Chen, Whitfield Construction's IT director. Her voice was furious and frightened in equal measure. James, someone is trying to remotely wipe the company's servers. Right now. As we speak. Who? The access credentials are Ethan's. He is logged in from his home IP address. He is deleting project files, financial records, communications, everything. My blood went cold. Can you stop it? Already done. Margaret's voice steadied, pride cutting through the fear. Your father came to me 6 months ago, May of this year. He said, Margaret, I need you to create a complete backup of every file on every server, everything Ethan has ever touched. Put it somewhere he cannot reach, and do not tell anyone. You did it. Of course I did. Henry Whitfield asked me to do something. I did it. Full mirror backup on an off-site secure server. Updated weekly. Ethan can delete everything on the main system. It does not matter. I have copies of every email, every transaction, every project file going back 5 years. My father. 6 months before he died, while cancer was consuming his body, he was still thinking 3 moves ahead. Still building fail-safes. Still protecting the company he had created from the grandson who was tearing it apart. Margaret. Lock Ethan out of all systems immediately. Change every password. Revoke his credentials. Done 10 minutes ago. He is locked out permanently. Thank you. You may have just saved this company. I did it for Henry, she said simply. Then hung up. By evening, the media had arrived. Channel 5 Memphis. The commercial appeal. A headline scrolled across my phone screen. Whitfield construction scandal. Substandard materials found in residential building. 60. 3 residents evacuated. The phone rang constantly. Reporters. Neighbors. Former employees. Philip calling with legal updates. The Tennessee Department of Building Safety scheduling emergency inspections for the other 3 sites. I sat in my hotel room at 10 p.m., staring at the television coverage. Aerial shots of Riverside apartments. The crack, visible even from a news helicopter. Families in temporary housing. A city councilwoman demanding answers. And beneath all of it, the same image repeating in my mind. A 4-year-old girl with a stuffed rabbit, looking back at her home with confusion, wondering why the walls were breaking. My phone rang one final time that night. Unknown number. I almost did not answer. Mr. Whitfield, this is Agent Kevin Morrison, FBI Field Office, Memphis. Yes? We need to talk about your son's finances. Specifically about a man named Vincent Drake. Are you available to meet tomorrow morning? The name meant nothing to me then. It would mean everything within 72 hours. I will be there, I said. What time? 8 a.m. Federal Building downtown. Bring everything you have. I hung up. Sat in the dark. My father's words echoed from his letter. Watch, Rachel. I do not have proof yet. Only suspicion. Vincent Drake. Rachel's maiden name was Drake. The coincidence settled into my chest like ice. I went to the FBI meeting the next morning. Agent Morrison showed me photographs, financial networks, a name circled in red, Vincent Drake, connected to illegal gambling operations across 4 states, connected to loan sharking, connected through a web of shell companies to debts owed by Ethan Whitfield. We have been building this case for 3 years, Morrison said. Your son is not the target. He is a victim, but he is also a witness, and his wife may be the key to everything. I left the federal building with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear. Whatever was happening with Ethan went deeper than gambling debts and stolen concrete. That night, I drove to the Riverside construction site. I do not know what pulled me there. Maybe I needed to see the damage up close. Maybe I needed to stand in the place where my son's choices had become real, tangible, dangerous. The evacuated building loomed dark against the Memphis sky. Yellow caution tape fluttered in the cold wind. No lights in any window. 63 people displaced. 22 children sleeping somewhere unfamiliar tonight because my son could not stop betting. I saw him before he saw me. Ethan sat on a stack of lumber near the east wall. The cracked wall. He was alone in the dark, elbows on his knees, staring up at the damage he had caused. No suit tonight. Jeans. A jacket too thin for November. He looked like he had not slept since the hearing. I parked. Killed the engine. Sat for a moment watching my son through the windshield. Then I got out and walked toward him. My boots crunched on gravel. He heard me coming, but did not turn. I stopped 10 feet away. The construction lights were off. Only the street lamp from the road cast any glow, painting everything in pale orange. Ethan. He still did not turn. How did you know I would be here? Because this is where I would be. Silence. The wind moved through the scaffolding above us, making the tarps snap like sails. Are you here to arrest me? He asked. Call the police? Get another incident report? I am here because you are my son. And I want to understand. He finally looked at me. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. Something in his face had broken since the courtroom. The arrogance was gone. The calculation was gone. What remained was something raw, something that looked like a man staring into the wreckage of his own life and finding nothing worth salvaging. Understand what? His voice cracked. That I am a thief? A liar? That I almost killed people for poker money? Tell me how it started. Ethan laughed. Bitter. Hollow. He looked back at the cracked wall. Rachel had a miscarriage. 3 years ago. We were 12 weeks along. She started bleeding at 2 in the morning. I drove 90 miles an hour to the hospital. They could not save it. His voice flattened. A boy. They told us it was a boy. The wind picked up. I said nothing. Let him talk. After that, Rachel shut down. Would not eat. Would not talk. Slept 16 hours a day for months. I did not know how to help her. Did not know how to help myself. I started playing online poker at night. 2 a.m. 3 a.m. When I could not sleep and the apartment was too quiet. And all I could think about was my son who never got to breathe. He picked up a piece of gravel, turned it over in his fingers. It was just a distraction at first. Small stakes. $20 buy-ins. Something to make my brain stop replaying that night. The drive. The blood. The sound Rachel made when they told her. When did it change? I asked quietly. 6 months in. I hit a big pot. $12,000 in one night. And I felt something I had not felt since before the miscarriage. I felt alive. I felt like I could control something. Like the universe was not just randomly destroying everything I loved. He threw the gravel into the darkness. So I chased it. Bigger games, online casinos, sports betting. Then a guy I met at a poker room in Tunica introduced me to a private game. High stakes, 10,000 minimum buy-in. That is where I met them. Them, the people I owe money to. They were friendly at first, gave me credit, let me play on margin, said I was good enough to go pro if I just kept at it. Another bitter laugh. I was not good enough. Nobody is good enough against a rigged table. But by the time I figured that out, I owed them $80,000. And it grew. Every month. Interest. Penalties. By last year it was $400,000. They started threatening me, showing up at my office, calling Rachel's phone, saying things about what happens to people who do not pay. He looked at me. Tears now. Real ones. The kind that come from a place beyond performance. So I took Grandpa's money. I told myself it was temporary. I would win it back. I would replace every dollar before anyone noticed. I just needed one big score. One hand. One night where the cards fell right. And the concrete. His face crumbled. I needed more cash flow. The company accounts were getting thin. I could not keep pulling from operations without someone noticing. So I found a way to cut costs. Mike Torres. He did not want to do it. I told him I would ruin him if he refused. I told a good man to put families in danger because I needed gambling money. Ethan's shoulders shook. He covered his face with both hands. Dad, that building almost killed people. Kids live there. A 4-year-old girl. I saw her today on the news being carried out by her mother, holding a stuffed rabbit. Looking confused, wondering why her home was broken. His voice broke completely. I did that. I almost killed that little girl. Because I could not stop. What kind of person puts children in danger for poker money? I stood there in the cold dark of that construction site, listening to my son confess the worst of himself. And I thought about my father's letter. A man who never faces consequences, never learns to change. A man who is lost, I said finally. Not a monster, Ethan. A man who is lost. He looked up at me. Disbelief. Maybe hope. Maybe something between the two. I do not know how to find my way back. He whispered. You start by telling the truth. All of it. Right now. Ethan wiped his face with the back of his hand. Drew a shaking breath. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, quieter. The voice of a man, about to say something he had never said aloud. Rachel knows. She has known from the beginning. The words hung in the cold air between us. I waited. Let the silence do its work. She signed off on the transfers, he continued. All 47 of them. She is the company's financial officer. Every wire to Apex Development went through her desk. She flagged none of them, questioned none of them, because she already knew where the money was going. Why? I asked. If she knew you were gambling, why would she help you steal? Ethan's jaw tightened. He looked away from me, into the darkness beyond the construction site. When he looked back, something new was in his eyes. Not just guilt, fear. Because she was scared, Dad. Not of me. Of them. Of the people I owe. The loan sharks. It is more than that. He stood up from the lumber stack. Started pacing. Short, agitated steps. His hands shoved into his jacket pockets. The guy who got me into the high-stakes games. The one I met at Tunica. His name is Vincent. He was charming. Smart. Knew exactly what to say. He made me feel like I was part of something exclusive. A private circle. Invitation only. Vincent. The name, Agent Morrison, had circled in red that morning. He introduced me to the table. Fronted my first buy-in. $10,000. Said it was a gift between friends. Then when I lost, he offered to cover me. Said I could pay him back whenever. No pressure. No timeline, but there was pressure. Not at first. That is the point. For 3 months, he was my best friend. Showed up at our house for dinner. Brought wine. Played with Rachel. Ethan stopped pacing. He brought Rachel into it. Said she was smart with numbers. Asked her to help him with some bookkeeping for a side business. Paid her well. She liked feeling useful. She had been depressed since the miscarriage, and this gave her something. My stomach turned. The bookkeeping was for the gambling operation. I did not know that then. Neither did she. Or maybe she did. I do not know anymore what was real and what was a setup. He rubbed his face hard. By the time the debt hit $80,000, Vincent changed. The friendly dinner stopped. The smiles stopped. He showed up at my office and told me exactly what would happen if I did not pay. Broken bones. Rachel. The baby we were trying to have. And Rachel? Ethan's voice dropped to almost nothing. She went to him, behind my back. Tried to negotiate. Begged him to give us more time. That is when he told her. Told her what? That he is her brother. The construction site went very quiet. Just the wind and the distant hum of Memphis traffic. Her half-brother, Ethan said. Same father, different mothers. Rachel was adopted at birth, grew up in Nashville. Never knew her biological family. Vincent found her when she was 19. Showed up at her college campus. Said he was family. Said he had been looking for her for years. I thought about Rachel at 22, when Ethan first brought her home. Quiet, polished, smart with numbers. Something about her my father had not trusted. Watch Rachel. He paid off her student loans, Ethan continued. $38,000. She thought it was generosity. A brother making up for lost time. Then 5 years ago, after we got married, he called in the favor. What favor? He told her to give him information. About Grandpa. About the company. Property values. Revenue. Net worth. She did not think anything of it at first. Just answering questions about her husband's family. But then the gambling started, and Vincent was the one who introduced me to it. He orchestrated the whole thing, Dad. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Vincent Drake had found Rachel, cultivated her trust, paid her debts to create obligation, waited until she married into a wealthy family, then used her position inside the company to set up the scheme. The gambling was not Ethan's weakness exploited by chance. It was a targeted operation. He planted her, I said. My voice sounded far away. Not exactly. She did not know the end game. She loved me. I believe that. But Vincent used that love as leverage. Once I was in debt to him, she could not say no. If she refused to sign the transfers, he threatened to hurt me. If she told me the truth about him, he said he would expose everything and we would both go to prison. So she signed. Every single one. Crying in the bathroom afterward. Losing weight. Not sleeping. I thought it was depression from the miscarriage. It was terror. I leaned against the Camry, processing. My father's instinct had been right. Something about Rachel. But it was not greed. It was captivity. She was as trapped as Ethan. Maybe more so. How much does Rachel know about Vincent's operation? Everything. She did his books for 2 years before the gambling started. Client lists. Payment schedules. Interest rates. Other families he has done this to. She told me last week that we are not the only ones. He has at least 12 families on the hook across 4 states. We are just the biggest score. 12 families. The same number Agent Morrison had mentioned. Rachel was not just a witness. She was the witness. The one the FBI had been looking for. Ethan. Does Vincent know you lost the hearing? Does he know about the will? He knows everything. I told him yesterday. I called him in a panic after the judge ruled. He said Ethan swallowed. He said the debt does not disappear just because Grandpa cut me out. He said if I cannot pay from the inheritance, he will take payment another way. What does that mean? The company. He wants me to sign over controlling interest in Whitfield Construction. He said, if I do not, he will. Headlights swept across the construction site. Bright. Sudden. Two vehicles turning off the main road onto the access path. Moving slowly. Deliberately. The way people move when they want to be seen. Ethan went rigid. The color drained from his face in an instant. Dad. His voice was barely a whisper. That is them. That is Vincent. Two black SUVs rolled to a stop 40 feet from where we stood. Engines idling. High beams cutting through the darkness like searchlights on a prison yard. I looked at my son. Saw the terror in his eyes. The absolute certainty that whatever came next would be violent. I pulled out my phone. Typed a text to Sheriff Dawson. 3 words. Riverside site, now. Then I put the phone back in my pocket and turned to face the headlights. The driver's door of the first SUV opened. A man stepped out. Italian leather shoes on broken concrete. A charcoal overcoat that cost more than most people's monthly rent. A smile that belonged in a boardroom and eyes that belonged in a cell. Good evening, gentlemen, Vincent Drake said. I believe we have business to discuss. Vincent Drake walked toward us like a man who owned every piece of ground he stepped on. Behind him, a second figure emerged from the passenger side of the lead SUV. Bigger. Younger. Tattoos climbing up his neck into his jawline. The kind of man whose job description was written in the width of his shoulders. Tommy, Vincent said without turning. Stay by the car. Tommy leaned against the hood. Arms crossed. His eyes did not leave us. Vincent stopped 10 feet away. The construction lights were off, but the SUV high beams threw his shadow long across the broken concrete. He was exactly what Ethan had described. 40 years old. Charming in the way a blade is charming. Clean-shaven, manicured, wearing that overcoat like armor. Everything about him said money, power, control. James Whitfield, he said. Not a question. He already knew who I was. I have heard a great deal about you. Henry's son. The engineer. The honest one. And you are Vincent Drake. His smile widened. Glad we can skip the introductions. Makes this simpler. He glanced at Ethan, who had not moved from the lumber stack. Benjamin. You look terrible. His name is Ethan, I said. Vincent waved a hand. Right. Ethan. My apologies. I get my investments confused sometimes. He reached into his coat pocket. I tensed. He pulled out a cigarette case. Silver. Monogrammed. Lit one with a gold lighter. The flame illuminated his face for a moment. No warmth in those eyes. None at all. So, he exhaled smoke into the cold air. We have a situation. Your boy owes me $400,000. Interest compounding monthly. He promised me that inheritance money. Told me his grandfather was dying and the payout was guaranteed. Imagine my disappointment when I heard about the hearing. The debt was built on manipulation, I said. You targeted my son. Rigged games. Manufactured the debt. No legitimate court would enforce it. Vincent laughed. Genuine amusement. Mr. Whitfield, I like you. Direct. No nonsense. Very much like your father. He took another drag. But here is the thing. Your son signed a contract. Legal. Binding. Notarized in the state of Nevada, where my interest rates are perfectly within statutory limits. 23%. High? Sure. Illegal? No. You introduced him to a rigged poker table. I introduced him to a poker game. What happened after that was his choice. Every bet, every raise, every loss. His choice. The contract reflects a debt freely incurred. Ethan spoke from behind me. His voice was thin. Vincent, I do not have the money. You know I do not. The inheritance is gone. The will, oh, I know about the will. Vincent stepped closer. His eyes moved to me. That is why I am here talking to Dad instead. You see, James, your son has nothing. Less than nothing. But you just inherited $4.2 million worth of company, prime real estate, 12 active contracts, equipment, vehicles, a name that still means something. In Western Tennessee, you want the company. I want what I am owed. And since your son cannot pay in cash, I will accept an alternative arrangement. Controlling interest, 51%. You sign it over, the debt disappears. Ethan walks free. Nobody gets hurt. Absolutely not. Vincent did not blink. Mr. Whitfield, I want you to think very carefully about what you are saying no to. This is not a negotiation between businessmen. This is a conversation between a creditor and a debtor's family. And in my experience, families that say no tend to experience complications. Tommy straightened by the car. Just slightly. Just enough. Complications, I repeated. Is that a threat? It is a forecast. Weather does not threaten. It just arrives. He dropped his cigarette, crushed it under that leather shoe. You have 1 week. Sign the papers. Or we pursue other avenues of collection. Less pleasant ones. I held his gaze. 30 years of managing construction sites. Workers who tried to intimidate. Inspectors who tried to bribe. Union bosses who showed up with lawyers and threats. None of them had eyes like Vincent Drake. But the principle was the same. Never show fear. Never negotiate from weakness. I am not signing anything, I said. Vincent tilted his head. Studied me. Then something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps. Or recalculation. Your father was like this too, you know. Stubborn. Henry Whitfield. I did my research on him. 50 years building that company. Never took a loan from anyone. Never bent. Never broke. He smiled again. But everyone breaks eventually, James. Everyone. Blue lights appeared at the end of the access road. A single patrol car. Moving fast without sirens. Sheriff Tom Dawson. My text had gone through. Vincent saw the lights. His expression did not change. He simply straightened his coat, adjusted his cuffs, and took 1 step back. Legal contract, James. Signed willingly. Notarized. Enforceable. Your sheriff cannot help you with that. He turned and walked back toward the SUV. Tommy opened the door for him. Oh, 1 week, he said over his shoulder. Then we come back, and next time I will not be this polite. The SUVs pulled away just as Sheriff Dawson's patrol car reached us. Gravel crunching. Red and blue lights painting the scaffolding above in alternating color. Dawson climbed out. Mid-50s. Broad-shouldered. The kind of lawman who had earned his badge in a place where everyone knew everyone. James. Got your message. Who were those vehicles? Vincent Drake. Loan shark. Demanding $400,000 from my son. Just threatened to take the company if we do not pay. Dawson watched the taillights disappear. Drake. That name came up in a federal briefing last month, connected to organized gambling. You need to talk to the FBI about this. Already have. He looked at Ethan, still sitting on the lumber. Then back at me. You two all right? For now, Dawson nodded. I will run those plates. And James, if they come back onto this property, I will arrest them for trespassing. But if they have a legal contract, he trailed off. We both knew the limitation. He drove away. The construction site fell silent again. Just the wind, and the dark, and my son's breathing. Then headlights again. Different this time. Smaller. A white sedan pulling in fast. Rachel's car. She jumped out before the engine fully stopped. Saw us. Saw me. Her face was streaked with tears. Eyes wild with fear. He was here, was he not? Vincent. He came here. He is gone, I said. Rachel stopped in front of us, shaking. Her coat was thrown on over pajamas. She had driven here in a panic. I need to tell you everything, she said. Her voice broke. All of it. The truth. He is my half-brother. He found me when I was 19. He paid my loans. He told me I owed him. He put me in your family because he wanted Grandpa's company. He used me to get to Ethan. He used both of us. She looked at Ethan, tears streaming. I love you. That part was real. That was always real. But Vincent owns me, Ethan. He has owned me since I was 19 years old. And I cannot do this anymore. I cannot keep lying. Not about this. Not with a baby coming. Ethan stared at her. Baby? Rachel placed a hand on her stomach. 8 weeks. I found out yesterday. I was going to tell you after the hearing. Before everything fell apart. The construction site. Midnight. A cracked building behind us. A criminal driving away. My son on a lumber stack. His wife in pajamas, pregnant, confessing. And me. Standing in the middle of it all. Thinking about my father's last words. I build the wall. You build the door. Rachel, I said. The FBI has been building a case against Vincent for 3 years. They need a witness. Someone inside his operation. Someone who knows the books. She looked at me. Terrified. Hopeful. Broken. Would you be willing to testify? Rachel said yes. Not immediately. She stood there in the parking lot of the Riverside construction site. One hand on her stomach. Tears drying in the cold wind. And asked one question. Will they protect us? The baby? I will make sure of it, I said. She nodded once. Then she crumbled. Ethan caught her, held her against his chest while she sobbed. They stood like that for a long time, two broken people holding each other upright in the dark. I turned away. Gave them the moment. Some things a father should not watch too closely. The next morning, I called Agent Morrison. She will do it, I said. Rachel will cooperate. Full testimony. Whatever you need. Morrison was at my hotel within 2 hours. He brought a female agent, Special Agent Diana Walsh, whose job was specifically to handle witnesses in vulnerable situations. They sat with Rachel in my hotel suite for 4 hours. Ethan and I waited in the lobby, drinking coffee that tasted like nothing, watching the elevator doors. When Rachel emerged, her eyes were red but her spine was straight. She looked different, lighter, as if confession had removed a physical weight from her body. They want me to wear a wire, she said. Meet with Vincent. Get him talking about the operation. Names, numbers, other victims. When? Ethan asked. Tomorrow. That night, nobody slept. Rachel rehearsed her approach with Agent Walsh via phone. Keep the conversation natural. Do not ask direct questions. Let him brag. Vincent's weakness was his pride. He loved explaining how smart he was, how perfectly his systems worked, how nobody could touch him. The meeting was set for Wednesday, December 4th. A restaurant called Carmichael's in Midtown Memphis, upscale. The kind of place Vincent would choose. Cloth napkins and $30 steaks and low lighting that made everyone look trustworthy. Rachel arrived at 11:45 a.m. The wire was invisible, sewn into the lining of her coat by FBI technicians. A van was parked 2 blocks away, with Morrison and Walsh monitoring in real time. 2 undercover agents sat at a corner table, pretending to be a couple on a lunch date. I was not there. Morrison had been clear about that. Family stays away. But Rachel called me the moment it was over. He talked for an hour, she said. Her voice was shaking but triumphant. He told me everything, bragged about it like I was supposed to be impressed. What Vincent said, recorded in high definition by federal equipment. 12 families across 4 states. Memphis, Nashville, Charlotte, Richmond. Total outstanding debt, $6.8 million. Total investment on my end? Maybe 200,000 in seed money. Introductions to the right poker games. A few gifted buy-ins. That is a 34-to-1 return, little sister. Better than Wall Street. He told her about the structure, how he identified targets. Wealthy families with vulnerabilities. A son with a spending problem. A daughter with a drinking habit. A husband who liked risk. He would find the crack. Insert himself. Become the friend. The confidant. The generous stranger. Then the games would begin. The Whitfields were my masterpiece, he said on the recording. Your husband's grandfather was sitting on $4 million in assets and dying of cancer. All I had to do was get Ethan to the table. The rest was gravity. He told her about the contracts. Nevada registered. Interest rates technically legal, but designed to be unpayable. The principal would grow regardless of payments. It was mathematically impossible to escape once you were in. And the best part, Vincent said, leaning back in his chair, is that nobody ever reports me. They are too ashamed, too scared, too deep in their own crimes by the time they realize what happened. Your husband stole $2 million from his own grandfather's company. You think he is going to the police? Rachel let him talk. Kept her breathing steady. Let the wire capture every self-congratulatory word. Morrison called me that evening. We have enough. More than enough. We are moving tomorrow, Thursday, December 5th, 6 a.m. FBI executed simultaneous raids in Memphis, Nashville, and Las Vegas. Vincent Drake was arrested at his Memphis hotel while eating breakfast. Tommy was taken at a gym on Poplar Avenue. 2 additional associates were picked up in Nashville. A 5th was detained at McCarran Airport in Las Vegas, attempting to board a flight to Mexico City. The charges were staggering. RICO violations. Illegal gambling operations across 5 states. Money laundering, totaling $4.1 million. Loan sharking involving 12 victim families. Wire fraud. Witness intimidation. Conspiracy. Agent Morrison called me at 9 a.m. It is done. All 5 in custody. Federal magistrates set bail at $2 million each. None of them are going anywhere. And the debt? Void. The contracts were instruments of a criminal enterprise. Unenforceable under federal law. Your son owes Vincent Drake nothing. I sat down. My legs gave out. 60 years old and sitting on the edge of a hotel bed. Phone pressed to my ear. Breathing like I had just sprinted a mile. Sentencing projection? I asked. Minimum 15 years. With the RICO enhancements and multiple state charges, probably closer to 20. Vincent Drake will be 70 years old before he sees daylight. I called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. It is over, I said. Vincent is in custody. The debt is void. All of it. Silence. Then a sound I had not heard from my son in years. A breath released. Not a sigh. A release. Like a man surfacing after being held underwater for 4 years. Dad. His voice cracked. Is Rachel safe? She is safe. Morrison says no charges for her. She is classified as a victim and cooperating witness. I heard him set the phone down. Heard Rachel's voice in the background. Then crying. Both of them. Together. The sound of 2 people realizing they might actually survive. When Ethan picked up again, his voice was steadier. What do I do now? Now you face what you did. The gambling. The money. The buildings. Vincent, being gone, does not erase those choices. Ethan, I know, the 400,000 is void. But the 2.3 million you took from the company is real. The buildings are real. The people you displaced are real. Paul Nakamura's deadline is real. I know, Dad. 17 days. 4 buildings. Substandard concrete that you put there. Families that cannot go home because of decisions you made. Vincent manipulated you. But you still made those decisions. I know. Quieter now. What do I do? You tell the truth. To a prosecutor this time. The whole truth. And then you help me fix those buildings. Silence. Then, okay. Yes. Whatever it takes. I hung up. Stood at the window of my hotel room. Memphis stretched out below, winter sunlight cutting through bare trees. Somewhere out there, 16 families were still in temporary housing, 22 children still sleeping in unfamiliar beds. The criminal was gone. The debt was erased. But 4 buildings still had grade C concrete in their bones, and the city engineer's deadline was 17 days away. The meeting with the district attorney was scheduled for December 9th, 4 days after Vincent's arrest. 12 days before Nakamura's deadline. Ethan wanted to go alone. I told him no. You are not walking into a prosecutor's office without support, I said. Not because you are weak, because what you are about to do takes more strength than anything you have ever done, and you deserve someone standing beside you while you do it. He did not argue. DA Patricia Coleman's office was on the 7th floor of the Shelby County Justice Center. Clean lines. Government furniture. A window overlooking the Memphis skyline that probably reminded every defendant who sat in that chair exactly how much they had to lose. Coleman was mid-40s. Sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The kind of prosecutor who had built her career on preparation rather than theatrics. She did not waste time. Mr. Whitfield, you are here to discuss potential cooperation regarding financial crimes committed at Whitfield Construction. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. Ethan's voice was steady. I could see the effort it took. Before we begin, I want to be clear. Anything you say today can be used against you. You have the right to an attorney. You are choosing to proceed without one. Is that correct? Yes. I want to tell the truth. All of it. No lawyers. No strategy. Just the truth. Coleman studied him for a moment, then opened a legal pad. Start from the beginning, and Ethan did. For 2 hours and 47 minutes, my son sat in that government chair and dismantled his own life, piece by piece. Every transaction, every authorization, every conversation with Mike Torres, where he had pressured a good man into compromising safety. Every dollar that went to Apex Development, every bet that went wrong, every lie he told to cover the last lie. He did not minimize, did not deflect, did not blame Vincent, or Rachel, or the miscarriage, or the addiction. He owned it. All of it. When he finished, Coleman sat back. Her legal pad was full. 7 pages of notes. Mr. Whitfield, she said, you have confessed to embezzlement of $2.3 million. Reckless endangerment of 63 residents across 4 buildings. Fraud. Falsification of construction documents. These are serious felonies. Combined, they carry a maximum sentence of 12 to 15 years. Ethan did not flinch. I understand. However, she set her pen down. You have come forward voluntarily. You have cooperated fully with the FBI investigation that resulted in 5 federal arrests. Your testimony will be material in the RICO prosecution of Vincent Drake, and the structural damage, while serious, has not yet resulted in injury or death. She looked at me briefly, then back at Ethan. I am prepared to offer the following: no prison time, 3 years supervised probation, 500 hours of community service, specifically directed toward construction, safety, education, full financial restitution. The total amount to be determined after repair costs are assessed. And 1 additional condition. What condition? Ethan asked. You work, physically, on the repair of all 4 compromised buildings. Not as a supervisor, not as a manager, as a laborer. You mix the concrete. You pour the foundations. You rebuild what you broke with your own hands. Under licensed supervision, obviously. But your hands, your sweat, your time. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Yes, I accept. All of it? No negotiation? All of it. Coleman closed her legal pad. Something shifted in her expression. Not quite softness. Recognition, perhaps. Sentencing hearing is scheduled for December 16th. Judge Morrison will preside. Be prepared to make a public statement. December 16th. 9 a.m. Courtroom C again. The same room where Ethan had tried to steal my inheritance 3 weeks earlier. Now he stood in it again, but everything was different. No expensive suit. No Conrad Price beside him. Just Ethan in a button-down shirt and slacks, standing before the same judge who had seen through him before. The gallery was full. Word had spread. Contractors. Community members. A few reporters. The families from Riverside were there. Maria Gonzalez sat in the second row with her daughter on her lap, the little girl with the stuffed rabbit. Judge Morrison looked down at Ethan from the bench. His expression was unreadable. Ethan Whitfield. You have pled guilty to embezzlement, reckless endangerment, and fraud. You have accepted the terms of a cooperation agreement with the district attorney's office. Before I accept your plea and impose sentence, do you wish to make a statement? Ethan stood. His hands trembled at his sides, but his voice was clear. Your Honor, I stole $2.3 million from my grandfather's company. I used it to pay gambling debts I should never have incurred. And to hide what I had done, I cut corners on 4 construction projects. I used substandard concrete in buildings where families live, where children sleep. He paused, swallowed. 63 people were evacuated from their homes because of my decisions. 22 children lost their sense of safety because I needed money to place bets. There is no excuse for that. Vincent Drake manipulated me. My addiction drove me, but I made the choices. Every single one. And I will spend however long it takes making it right. He looked at the gallery, at Maria Gonzalez, at the little girl who was watching him with wide, curious eyes. I am sorry. That is not enough. But it is where I start. Judge Morrison let the silence hold. Then he spoke. Your grandfather built Whitfield Construction with 50 years of honest labor. He trusted you with it. And you nearly destroyed it. And the people living inside it. Today, you begin earning something your grandfather could not give you. You begin earning the right to carry his name. The gavel fell. I sat in the gallery with tears running down my face. The first time I had cried since my father's funeral. Not from sadness. From something harder to name. Pride and grief and hope and fear all twisted together into something that made my chest hurt. Afterward, in the hallway, Ethan found me. His eyes were wet too. Thank you for being here, he said. Where else would I be? That Friday, I authorized $2.3 million in emergency repairs from company accounts. 4 buildings. Structural concrete replacement. Full remediation. Every dollar going exactly where it should have gone in the first place. And Monday morning, December 19th, 6 a.m. My son showed up at the Riverside construction site, not in a suit, in steel-toed boots, a hard hat, a high-visibility vest. The foreman, a man named Carl Ruiz who had worked for my father for 20 years, looked Ethan up and down and handed him a shovel. Bottom of the ladder, Whitfield. Start digging. Ethan took the shovel, gripped it with soft hands that had never held one before, and started digging. The first week nearly destroyed him. Ethan had never held a shovel for more than 10 minutes in his life. By noon on that first Monday, his palms were raw. By Wednesday, the blisters had opened and bled through his work gloves. By Friday, he could barely close his fingers around a coffee mug. He showed up Saturday morning anyway. 6 a.m. Hard hat. Boots. Bleeding hands, wrapped in fresh bandages, under new gloves. Carl Ruiz looked at him and said nothing, just pointed to the next section of wall that needed demolition. The crew did not welcome him. These were men who had worked for Henry Whitfield, men who had poured honest concrete for decades, who had heard about the scandal on the news, who knew exactly what Ethan had done and exactly why they were now tearing apart work that should never have needed tearing apart. Nobody spoke to him the first month. Not during breaks. Not at lunch. Not when he dropped a 60-pound bag of premix on his own foot and limped for 3 days without complaint. They watched him from behind their safety glasses with the specific contempt of craftsmen for a man who had desecrated their craft. Ethan did not try to explain, did not try to charm, did not pull the Whitfield name or mention that he technically owned this company. He just showed up, dug, carried, mixed, poured, bled, went home, came back. I watched from a distance. Visited the site twice a week to review progress with Carl. Never intervened. Never smoothed things over. The work would teach Ethan, or it would not. Words could not do what bleeding hands and silent crews could. Tuesday nights, Ethan drove to a church basement on Cooper Avenue in Midtown Memphis. Gamblers Anonymous. He walked in the first time and did not speak. Just listened. Sat in a metal folding chair with his bandaged hands in his lap, and heard other men and women tell stories that sounded exactly like his. The second week, he introduced himself. "My name is Ethan. I am a compulsive gambler. I have not placed a bet in 23 days. He never missed a Tuesday. Not once. Not in 6 months. By February, his hands had calluses. The blisters had hardened into something permanent. He could swing a sledgehammer for an hour without stopping, could mix a batch of concrete by feel, knowing the right consistency by the weight of it on the shovel. One morning in early March, the crew was removing the compromised east wall of Riverside Apartments. 16-inch concrete panels reinforced with rebar. Heavy, dangerous work. The crane operator was out sick. Carl looked at the schedule and swore. "We are behind," he muttered. "Need to take down 3 more panels today, or we miss the inspection window." Ethan stepped forward. "I can do it manually." With the pneumatic saw and the rigging team, Carl studied him. 3 months of watching this man work without complaint. 3 months of silence and sweat and showing up. "Fine. You lead the rigging. Rodriguez on the saw. Do not drop anything on anyone." It was the first time anyone on that crew had trusted Ethan with responsibility. He did not waste it. 3 panels came down by 4 p.m. Clean cuts. Perfect rigging. Nobody got hurt. Carl nodded once. That was all. But the next morning, one of the crew members, a man named Davis who had not spoken to Ethan in 90 days, set a cup of coffee on the lumber stack beside him before work started. Did not say anything. Just set it down and walked away. That was how forgiveness began on that construction site. Not in words. In coffee cups and nods, and the slow recognition that a man who shows up bleeding every day might actually mean what his hands are saying. There was a morning in April. I was at the site reviewing inspection reports with Paul Nakamura, who had returned for the 60-day follow-up. Ethan was mixing concrete nearby. Grade A structural, 4,200 psi, the same specification that should have been there from the beginning. I walked over, watched him work for a moment. His movements were efficient now. Not elegant, but competent. The awkwardness of those first weeks was gone. "You know what makes a building stand?" I asked. He looked up, wiped sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. "The foundation." "Partly. But the foundation is just the base. What makes a building stand is the ratio between its height and its depth. The taller you want to build, the deeper you have to dig. Most people want to build high without digging deep. That is why things collapse." Ethan looked at the concrete he was mixing, then at the wall rising behind him. New concrete over new rebar, over new foundation. "Grandpa dug deep," he said. 50 years deep. And you are starting now. Late, but starting." He nodded. Went back to work. No more words needed. June arrived. 6 months since that first Monday with the shovel. The Riverside East wall was complete. New concrete. Grade A. Tested and certified by Paul Nakamura himself. Every panel, every joint, every inch rebuilt to specification. The families moved back in on a Saturday morning in mid-June. I was there. Ethan was there. The crew was there. 63 people carrying boxes back into their homes. Children running through hallways. The relief on their faces so tangible it felt like sunlight. Maria Gonzalez carried her daughter up the stairs to the 4th floor. The same stairwell. The same hallway. But the wall was whole now. Solid. Strong. The little girl, 5 years old now, looked out her bedroom window at the construction site below. Saw Ethan, standing among the crew in his hard hat and vest, covered in concrete dust. She raised her small hand and waved. Ethan waved back. His eyes glistened, but he did not cry. He just stood there, hand raised, accepting a forgiveness he had not asked for from the person who deserved to give it least. I turned away. Let him have the moment. 6 months. 412 hours of physical labor. 26 GA meetings. 0 bets placed. 1 wall rebuilt. 1 family back home. 3 more buildings to go. The second year was different. Not easier. Different. The blisters were gone, replaced by hands that looked like they belonged to a man who worked for a living. The crew no longer avoided Ethan at lunch. Davis saved him a seat most mornings. Rodriguez taught him to weld on weekends. Carl Ruiz stopped checking his work every hour and started trusting him to run sections unsupervised. Oak Park Commons was completed in August. The Midtown project in October. The warehouse on Beale Street, the last of the 4, finished just before Thanksgiving, 2025. Every building stripped down to the compromised sections, every inch of Grade C concrete removed. Every panel replaced with Grade A, tested and certified. Paul Nakamura signed off on each one personally. 4 buildings. 14 months of work. $2.3 million in repairs. And 1 man who had mixed, poured, carried, and rebuilt every single day. In December, Carl Ruiz called Ethan into the site office. A temporary structure that smelled like sawdust and engine oil. Carl sat behind a metal desk, covered in blueprints. Whitfield. Sit down. Ethan sat. I have been doing this job for 20 years, Carl said. Worked for your grandfather most of that time. I knew Henry Whitfield better than most people. Stubborn man. Hard man. But fair. He told me once that the measure of a worker is not what he does when someone is watching. It is what he does when nobody is. Ethan waited. Nobody was watching you for 14 months, Carl continued. I stopped checking your work in April. You did not know that. But every pour, every mix, every panel you set was exactly to spec. Not once did I find a shortcut. Not once did you take the easy route. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. I am promoting you to foreman. Effective January 1st. You will run a crew of 8. Residential projects. New builds. Clean slate. Ethan looked at the paper. Then at Carl. I do not know if I deserve this. That is exactly why you do. Rachel, meanwhile, was rebuilding too. She enrolled in an accounting program at the University of Memphis in January 2025. Online courses at first, then evening classes. She studied with a ferocity that came from somewhere deep, somewhere that needed to prove she could build something honest with the same skills Vincent had corrupted. By September 2025, she earned her certification. By November, she had 3 small business clients in Shelby County. Legitimate work, clean books, her own name on the door. And on January 15, 2026, Rachel gave birth to a girl. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a full head of dark hair and a cry that filled the hospital room like a declaration. They named her Henrietta, after Henry. I held my granddaughter for the first time in that hospital room. She was so small, so new, so completely unburdened by everything that had come before her. Her tiny hand wrapped around my finger with surprising strength. Ethan sat beside Rachel's bed, exhausted and elated. He looked at me holding his daughter and said, "She will never know any of this, Dad. Not the gambling, not the buildings, not Vincent. She will only know the man I became after. Then make sure that man is worth knowing," I said. He nodded. Every day. The months that followed were quiet in the best way. Ethan ran his crew with the kind of quiet authority that comes from having done every job yourself. His workers respected him not because of his last name but because he arrived first, left last, and never asked anyone to do something he would not do himself. Every other Tuesday he still went to GA. The meetings had shifted from survival to maintenance, from white-knuckling through each day to something steadier. Something that looked like peace. The penalty clause payment stood at $38,000. $15 an hour. 40 hours a week. For over a year. He still owed $17,000. Another 11 months at this pace. He never complained about it. Never suggested I forgive the remainder. Just kept working. Kept paying. On a Saturday in late October 2026, the final inspection on the Beale Street warehouse was complete. The last of the 4 buildings fully certified. Structurally sound. Safe. That evening, Ethan and I climbed to the rooftop. Just the two of us. Memphis spread out below in every direction. The river, the bridges. The city lights beginning to glow as the sun dropped. We stood at the edge, looking out. 2 years of work behind us. 4 buildings saved. 1 family put back together. "You know what I realized?" Ethan said. His voice was quiet. Calm in a way I had never heard from him before. "What?" "The building is not the legacy." He turned to me. Grandpa's legacy was never the concrete, or the steel, or the contracts. The building is just proof. Proof that someone showed up every day and did the work. That is what he was trying to teach me. That is what the will was about. I looked at my son. The man he had become. Calloused hands. Steady eyes. The desperate arrogance long gone, replaced by something quieter and infinitely stronger. "He would be proud of you," I said. And I meant it. Ethan nodded. Looked out at the city. "I am not done yet. But I am closer than I was." We drove home separately. But it felt like together. November 26th, 2026. 2 years to the day since I stood in Nashville International Airport at 5:30 in the morning with my hands shaking and an officer walking toward me. 2 years since Ethan made that call at 4:52 a.m. 2 years since everything broke. That morning, I was on my porch at 6 a.m., coffee in hand, watching the Tennessee sun rise. The way my father used to. A truck pulled into the driveway. Ethan's truck. He climbed out carrying 2 cups of coffee. Did not head toward the work site. Walked up the porch steps. Sat down in the chair beside me. Set 1 cup in front of me. "Dad, I need to talk to you." The morning was cold. Late November in Tennessee. Frost on the grass. The sun just clearing the tree line, painting everything gold and amber. My father used to sit in this exact chair, at this exact hour, coffee in hand, watching the day begin, deciding what needed building. Now his son sat here, and his grandson sat beside me. "What is it?" I asked. Ethan wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. Steam rose between his fingers. Those hands were different now, scarred across the knuckles. A callus on his right palm, so thick it caught the light. Hands that had poured 2,000 yards of concrete in 24 months. "I got an offer," he said. I waited. Let him find his pace. Turner and Associates. Corporate development firm in Atlanta. Vice President of Development. $350,000 a year. Corner office. Company car. Full benefits. Stock options. The number hung in the cold air. $350,000. More than Ethan had ever earned legitimately. More than I had earned in my best year as an engineer. The kind of money that solves problems, pays debts, builds easy lives. That is a significant opportunity. I said carefully, "It is." He took a sip of coffee, set the cup on the porch railing. "The recruiter called 2 weeks ago. I did the interviews, 3 rounds. They loved my resume, loved that I had hands-on experience. Said I was exactly what they needed. Someone who understood both the business side and the physical reality of construction." "When did they make the offer?" "Monday." I asked for a week to think about it. I studied him. His posture was relaxed. His voice was steady. No excitement. No anxiety. No desperation. This was not a man wrestling with temptation. This was a man who had already made his decision and was about to tell me why. I turned it down. "Yesterday, I set my own coffee down." "Why?" Ethan looked out at the yard. The bare trees. The frost melting in the growing sunlight. A cardinal landed on the fence post and tilted its head at us. 2 years ago, I would have taken it without blinking. The money, the title, the office, the feeling of being important. That was all I wanted. To be someone people envied. He paused. "That is the man who stole $2.3 million. The man who put grade C concrete in buildings where children slept. The man who called airport security on his own father." He turned to me. "I am not that man anymore, Dad. I do not want a corner office in Atlanta. I do not want stock options and a company car. I do not want to sit in meetings about buildings I will never touch with my own hands. What do you want?" "I want to build things that matter. Here, in Memphis, with the crew that taught me what work actually means. On the land Grandpa spent 50 years earning." He straightened in his chair. Something in his posture shifted. Not nervousness. Resolution. Grandpa did not leave me the company because I was not ready. I know that now. I was not just unready. I was dangerous. I would have sold it. Gambled the money. Destroyed everything he built. He saw that. He knew. He did. But now. Ethan's voice was quiet but certain. "Now I think I might be ready. Not because 2 years of labor made me entitled to it, but because I finally understand what it costs. Every dollar in that company represents someone's sweat, someone's early morning, someone's bleeding hands. I know that now because they were my hands." He looked at me directly. "So I wanted to ask. Not demand, not expect. Ask. Would you teach me how to actually run Whitfield Construction? Not as a worker, as a partner. The business side, the planning, the decisions. And someday, if I earn it, if you believe I have earned it, I want to carry Grandpa's company forward." I looked at my son. Really looked at him. The dark circles from 2 years ago were gone. The weight loss was gone. In their place was something solid, something built. Not overnight, not through inheritance. Through 2 years of 6 a.m. mornings and bleeding palms and Tuesday night meetings in a church basement and the slow, grinding, unglamorous work of becoming someone different, I thought about my father's letter. Scott will give Ethan a way back. That is who my son is. I thought about Henry on his deathbed. I am building the wall. You build the door. The door was here. Right now. On this porch. In this moment. Partners, I said. 50-50. Ethan's eyes filled. He blinked rapidly. Looked away for a moment. Then back. You mean it? You learn operations while I handle the transition. Finances. Client relations. Project management. The things your grandfather spent decades mastering. When you are ready, and I will know when you are ready, it becomes yours. Not because Henry left it to you. Not because you are my son. Because you earned it. Brick by brick. Pour by pour. Day by day. I will not let you down. I know you will not. We sat there for a moment. Two men on a porch in the Tennessee morning. Father and son. The space between us that had been a chasm for so long was something else now. Not gone. Transformed. Filled with shared work and hard truth and the slow rebuilding of trust. Ethan stood. I stood. And he hugged me. Not the stiff, obligatory embrace of holidays and funerals. A real hug. The kind where you hold on because you need to. Where your arms say things, your mouth cannot form into words. I felt his shoulders shake once, then steady. 3 years. 3 years since the last time my son had held me like this. Since before the gambling and the lies and the courtroom and the crack in the wall. 3 years of loss and ruin and rebuilding. And now this. I held him back. Just as hard. Just as long. When we separated, we were both wiping our eyes. Neither of us mentioned it. Some things do not need acknowledgement. They just need to be felt. Come inside, I said. Rachel and Henrietta should hear this. Ethan smiled. A real smile. The first one in so long that I had forgotten what it looked like on his face. She is going to cry, he said. Good. Let her. We walked inside together. The screen door closed behind us with the same creak it had made when my father lived here. When Henry would come inside from the porch after his morning coffee, ready to build something. Now his son and grandson were ready too. That afternoon, I drove to Greenwood Cemetery on the south side of Nashville. The road wound through old oaks and iron fences and headstones that told 100 years of Tennessee stories. My father's plot was near the back, beneath a red oak he had pointed out to me 20 years ago during a visit to my mother's grave. When my time comes, he had said, put me under that tree. Good shade. Good roots. A man could rest there. I parked and walked the gravel path. The November air was sharp. Leaves crunched under my boots. The headstone was simple. Gray granite. The way he wanted it. Henry James Whitfield. 1941 to 2024. Builder. Father. Faithful servant of God. I sat on the bench beside his grave, pulled out his journal. The leather-bound one he had kept for 40 years. Sunday evenings after church. Every week. Without fail. His handwriting filling pages the way concrete fills a form. Steady. Deliberate. Permanent. I opened to the final entry. December 29th, 2023. 11 months before he died. The last Sunday, he had the strength to write. I read it aloud. To him, to the oak tree, to the cold Tennessee afternoon. I changed the will last week. Hardest thing since burying Margaret. But I am at peace. Ethan will fight it. I know he will. That boy has never accepted a closed door without trying to kick it down. Gets that from me, if I am honest. But here is what I believe. God does not waste suffering. Not mine, not Ethan's, not James's. Every broken thing is material for something new. That is what construction taught me. You do not throw away cracked concrete. You remove it, replace it, build stronger on the same ground. A father's revenge is not punishment. Any fool can punish. Real revenge, the kind that matters, the kind God honors, is building a road back for the son who lost his way, even when he does not deserve it. Especially when he does not deserve it. James will understand. He always does. Eventually, I closed the journal, sat with the words, let them settle the way concrete sets. Slowly, permanently. He earned it, Dad, I said to the headstone. Took him 2 years. Cost him everything he thought he wanted. But he earned it. The wind moved through the oak above me. Leaves scattered across the grave in patterns that meant nothing and everything. I thought about the morning. The porch. The coffee. The hug. My son's arms around me, strong from 2 years of labor, shaking with the emotion of a man who has walked through fire and emerged different. Not unburned. Different. Scarred but standing. I thought about Henrietta. 10 months old. Already pulling herself up on furniture. Already reaching for things above her. Henry's great-granddaughter, who would grow up knowing a father who built houses with his hands and showed up at 6 a.m. and kept promises. She would never know the man Ethan used to be, only the man he chose to become. And I thought about God. How he works through broken things. How the worst chapter of our family's story became the foundation for its best. How mercy is not weakness. It never was. Mercy is the hardest kind of strength, because it requires you to hold two things at once: the knowledge of what someone did and the belief in who they can still become. My father understood that. Built his entire final act around it. A will designed not to punish, but to redirect. A trap that was really a door. A consequence that was really an invitation. Some people would call what Henry did cruel. Cutting out his own grandson. Letting him walk into a courtroom with evidence that would destroy him. But those people do not understand what real love looks like when it is aimed at someone determined to destroy themselves. Sometimes love has teeth. Sometimes love says no. Sometimes love builds a wall so high that the only way forward is through the door someone else left open. I build the wall. You build the door. That was my father's final blueprint. Not for a building, for a family. I stood up from the bench, touched the top of the headstone once. Cold granite under my palm. Thank you, Dad. For knowing me better than I knew myself. For trusting me with the hardest job you ever gave anyone. I walked back to my truck. The sun was low now, casting long shadows through the cemetery. As I reached the gate, my phone buzzed. A photo from Rachel. Ethan, at a construction site. New project. Residential development on the east side of Memphis. His crew behind him. Hard hats. Smiles. And in his arms, Henrietta. 10 months old. In a tiny yellow hard hat. That Rachel must have found somewhere. Grinning at the camera. With 2 teeth showing. 3 generations of Whitfields. Building. And to you listening to this story right now, I want to say something. I never thought I would be the kind of man telling a family story about betrayal and redemption on the internet. But here we are. When my father Henry changed that will, I thought it was the cruelest thing he could do to Ethan. I was wrong. It was the most loving. God gave me 3 chances to see the truth. First, when Henry died and left me everything, I did not understand why. Second, when Ethan attacked me at that airport and in that courtroom, I wanted to fight back. Something held me. Third, when I sat on that rooftop with my son and watched him understand what 50 years of honest labor actually means, that is when God whispered, "Mercy is not weakness. It is strength." This family story taught me that a father's revenge is not about destroying your child when they betray you. Real revenge, the kind that changes generations, is refusing to let them destroy themselves. It is saying, "I will not give up on you, even when you have given up on yourself." It is handing someone a shovel when they expect a fist. Do not be like me. Do not wait for a funeral and a courtroom and a cracked wall and a criminal at your door to learn that forgiveness is something you build. Brick by brick, pour by pour, day by painful day. Start now. Because the people you love will not wait forever. And the blueprints God draws for our families only work if someone is willing to pick up the tools. My father's revenge was not punishment, it was redemption. And thank God he was right about me. Thank God he was right about Ethan. If this story moved you, if you have ever wondered whether a father's hardest choice could actually be his greatest gift, tell me in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to this channel, because the stories ahead will challenge you, break you open a little, and maybe change how you see your own family. Thank you for staying until the end. That matters more than you know.